fairness to, I think he asked the question earlier, and I think we should start with that. I've been asked this question before, and really, there's an active investigation. I can't speak to it any more or less than the district attorney does. I just can't do that.
Well,
I was
I'm not asking you to intervene in the legalities of the thing. I know that that's ongoing, but that doesn't mean that some action can't be taken against this individual independent of the legal cases that he's involved in. You know, transferring him or something like that, because it's really, the legal processes could take forever. You know, some kind of a suspension or something. It's a problem, and it's an obstacle to getting to where we want to be, where we're getting to, but we're not going to be able to get there completely in terms of community, resident, public safety relations unless we deal with this problem.
I mean, you're a union guy. You don't suspend people in the middle of an investigation.
Well, first of all, we can have a discussion about
whether
or not the CBA is a real union or not. But I know in my union, if somebody gets you know, some serious charge, they do take them out of service on the railroad. You know, we do. I was out of service for something. It took me a year to win my job back, and I was proven to be completely, you know, for a stop signal violation, which I didn't do. It was technical equipment. But I was out for a whole year before I won my job back, and I was innocent. So you know, so I know that unfortunately, you know you know, there are things that can be done even without him losing his job. I'm just saying something should be worked out so that this person is off the island.
Or taken off the street.
I respect your feelings. Yes.
I'm not entirely privy to what you're talking about, but I think what I was getting at is there some position he can be put in, this person can be put in, where he is not actually dealing face-to-face with residents? Maybe, you know, the best job
he's a supervisor.
And but where he is, but that's the problem.
If I can finish, please. When there are 2 supervisors or 3 supervisors working, he is behind the desk. Once, maybe twice a week, he's alone. And he has to monitor what's going on in the field. He's a supervisor.
So maybe he needs to be put in a position where he's not actually dealing directly with residents.
Well, you know, I don't find any reason to do that. I mean, I respect what went on here before I got here. The man has no complaints since I've been here. Okay? I'd like to move forward.
Okay. All right. That's
Rosie?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I have a question about the issue with the loitering at the deli, the M&D deli. I don't know if this was ever resolved, but I don't know who is allowed to tell the deli that they have to close by a certain hour. I thought it was the store's prerogative to do that. And I'm just curious about it. I think I heard that, I saw it on the Roosevelt Islander.
You did.
They covered that. And I just wanted to follow up on that. Was that resolved? I mean, are they allowed to stay open as long as they want? And if not, how is public safety able to tell them to close at a certain
We never
time?
told them. We asked, we requested. There's a big difference. The way it was, and I read it myself, that we told them to do that, and that's not the case. We requested them to close it early. They chose not to. You know, in what's been going on in the island since I got here, I think we have a better relationship with the younger people, and there really haven't been any issues. They haven't closed early, and there haven't been any issues.
Okay, I just was following up on it. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
I read the T&M operational audit with enormous interest. They laid out a series of difficulties that they had found and the steps that had been taken to react to them. And it sounds as though there have been an enormous number of changes that have been effected since you came on board. Could you speak a bit about those changes that have not yet been effected but that you would like to effect?
Sure.
Yes.
I think we need, at least as public safety, I think we need to work more with the younger people on the island. And I'm in the process of establishing a second youth officer to be able to do that. We're involved in coaching sports now with young kids between 9 and 13 years old. I enjoy coaching. I coach soccer, I coach basketball now, and I'm going to be coaching baseball in the spring. And I have an officer that was a Division I baseball player, and he has great rapport with the younger people, and in all likelihood, he'll be my second youth officer. Training is a huge issue. You know, I'd like to say that, you know, and I was thinking about this morning. Training is in theory and in practice started when I walked in the door. I won't tolerate any abuses, and I think the folks that work for me know that. I came in and I realized, I didn't have to realize, I was told immediately about the fractured relationship between public safety and the community. And I can understand why. So and at the same time I had a bruised, I had a force with very low morale. So, you know, the way I was taught by my parents, you know, it starts by the way you treat folks. And I've been out, I'm not a desk guy, so I'm out a lot. I'm interacting with folks every day, and you know, oftentimes I have an officer with me. So I think they have a pretty good feel for the way I speak to people. And I'd like to think that has carried over. I really can't speak about what happened before I came here. But I don't tolerate any abuse of any kind, whether it's verbal, physical, or otherwise. So I'm really the head trainer, right? You know, as I see that's part of my position. There's more formalized training coming. I have a fella that I used to work with in the police department that's an excellent trainer. He's been overseas. He's coming back, and he will probably be the first. He'll take the first group through escalation of force, laws of arrest, de-escalation, and things like that, which I think are very critical.
I'll tell you one change that I've seen is that your officers are just making eye contact with you whenever you see them. That's a big change.
Okay,
I'm glad to hear that.
no. The PSC had placed numerous civilian complaints in with RIRA almost a year ago. When will these complaints be investigated? I noticed also in the audit that they spoke that there was supposed to be an assessment of suitability of each officer. You were going to update your MIS information so that personnel information such as this type of information could be easily readable for when things were investigated. But my issue is, okay, nobody wants to move on what happened before. We still haven't seen an investigation. We gave you guys 20 civilian complaints. What happened? Where are the answers? I have victims who still want to know. What's the story? They put in complaints as they were directed to, which is the process. They haven't been responded to. When is an investigation of the civilian complaints put into RIRA back in March 2013 going to be initiated, which would cover Hernandez, which would cover Yee, which would cover Cabasa, and several others who had complaints against them?
We're not trying to wallow in the past.
No,
I
this
understand.
is accurate.
We want to move
Civilian
forward, and
complaints
we
deserve
acknowledge
to
that
be
the first thing I acknowledged was
investigated.
we are moving forward, and we recognize that, and
Yes.
we appreciate that.
Yes.
But these things are like festering sores, you know, and they're not really part of the past. They're part of the present because the guys are still here.
Well,
That
it's
guy-
once investigated,
understand.
the findings will be documented, and when will the victims hear the conclusion of the investigation? Or are they to assume that their complaints are not valid?
First of all, I have to find out where they lie. My understanding was
I
they
have
were-
copies if you need them.
Sure. I mean, but, you know, I'm not going to conduct a dual investigation while the Inspector General is conducting one.
Well- Okay,
So this is with the Inspector General still?
That was my understanding, but I'll have a more accurate answer and I'll get back to you.
But can I just ask, I'm sorry, I don't mean to dominate. I just can't you, just as a matter of form, couldn't you call them up and say, look, can you expedite this? People want to at least have something on paper
Closure.
where it's been adjudicated and we can at least get an official version of reaction to the complaints. I'm not saying you should investigate, I know you got your hands full, and that would be wallowing in the past. But can't you expedite the people that are supposedly already investigating, so we know what's going on?
You know, I just want to go back for a second. I don't consider any of this wallowing in the past. There's clearly hurt in some of the folks sitting in this room right now, and I recognize that. For me, it's a balance, moving forward, recognizing what happened before I got here. I don't dismiss that and say I wasn't here, it doesn't matter. It does matter. It really does. I'll find out and I'll have better answers, and I'll speak to Aaron about where those investigations lie.
Okay, one other question, can I just ask you, what officer is in charge of training your officers at this time, and is this officer a New York State certified trainer, as was recommended in the audit?
Yes.
Okay, so is it now Officer Lieutenant Yee
For right now, it is.
is your training, and he is New York State certified?
Yes.
Okay, and he also trains the people that go out into the field? He's the field trainer as well?
At my direction, and
Yee has a history too.
we have, no, I know, and we have there's a second officer that, I was able to get the lieutenant into the instructor development class at the police academy, which is a nationally recognized program for training folks how to train law enforcement folks. And that was a 2-week course. He just finished that recently, and I'm trying to get a second officer in. I'm not really prepared to divulge the name. So, this is part of what I might consider as a change in the future.
Okay,
I understand, where you're coming from.
okay.
Actually, I have three
Go ahead.
points. But, first of all, I read the report. I read it a couple of times. And I was glad to see that the suggestion to go to a more community-oriented policing, or whatever they call it, as away from the really strict enforcement. Because I think Roosevelt Island doesn't require strict enforcement. I think we're
I totally agree.
fairly peaceful community.
Totally agree.
We have some issues, but mostly they're minor. And so that was a good thing to see. I have 3 questions actually. So one of them is related to that. One of them it goes to, on Roosevelt Island, in spring and summer, we're all outside, we're at the parks, families are out there picnicking, barbecuing, and occasionally we want some wine or beer to drink at the picnic. It is not a really rip-roaring crowd of people when you have families, the way we have families here. And frequently, 99% of the time, people got summonses for this. Now, I know that in New York City, at Central Park, and probably in the other big parks, when the New York Philharmonic did concerts, when the Metropolitan Opera did concerts, people come out in droves, they picnic, they have their wine fully visible to the NYPD. Nobody gets a summons, not one person, unless of course you're really being stupid.
Sure.
I want to know if we can sort of rest assured that we can sit in our parks peacefully having a glass of wine with our barbecued chicken or our fried chicken or whatever it is we're having on a day when it's beautiful out, and we don't have to worry about public hiding our wine or our beer from public
If
safety.
that day ever comes that it's beautiful.
Okay, well, it will come, it will come. I have it. That's one of my first things. Okay.
I'm not prepared tonight to unilaterally say that that's okay.
I'm saying barring that people are, picking fights and getting into rowdy
But
bad
it takes more than that. There are people I have to discuss it with. There are park regulations that we're being asked to enforce, and I haven't been told to relax on. but I will speak to who I have to speak to about it.
Well, somehow the NYPD manages to relax that in a park with 10,000 people sitting and eating and drinking wine and beer.
It's not like that in every park in the city. It's
Well,
not.
when the New York Philharmonic is playing, I don't think
No,
that people are.
I've observed it and I agree, but it's not like that. It's
All
not
right.
across the
Well,
board.
that's a concern, I think, for many of us, because truly, it just strikes us as stupid. There's a quality of life issue that we're asking for somebody to use common sense. Okay, that's good, there's an answer that will come.
Okay, there's more to it though, if you want, you know, this is.
I know the strict law.
No, this does speak to that. It speaks to the fact that I totally agree with you that this island does not need strict enforcement. The amount of, I look at the period, the 9-month period before I got here compared to the 9 months since I've been here. Arrests have been reduced by 58%.
That's excellent.
Summonses, and I know there's, my friend, the lady right over here, is not happy with the traffic on the island, and would probably look for more moving violations. But when you consider the parking, when you consider the parking, the moving violations, and the criminal court summonses, which that may be for an alcohol, an open container in public, 75% reduction. And you know what? Crime hasn't gone down.
Right. Okay, well, it's
So
just a
wait,
consideration.
No, I understand.
Okay. The other thing is, I read in the report, I want to commend you for removing the tinting from the windows of all of those vehicles. That's an excellent idea. I know it's a small thing, but
No, it's not.
it is and it isn't.
It sends a message that we don't want to talk to you.
Yes, exactly. And I think that we should all be aware of that there is that step. It's a
We are.
step.
We're very aware of
And
it.
I'm happy to see that it
I'm
was
glad.
done, and that, I didn't even think of it until I read the report. Oh, well, of course, that makes perfect sense, so, thank you. The other thing is, and this is my own bugaboo, and it's not a really major thing, but it drives me crazy. And I meant to ask the young woman who is here during the week from Bike New York. I didn't have a chance to coordinate that. But I know, I walked past that window with those 10 bicycles in the window. And I know I've never seen more than two PSD people out on those bikes. Is it possible that public safety, and I read that there was a problem with overspending in the PSD. Is it possible that maybe 6 or 7 of those bikes could be donated to the Bike New York program on Roosevelt Island? You know, even, you know, maybe as a shared thing, you know, if you need 2 bikes back because there's a major thing going on and you need more officers out on bikes.
That's a great idea.
But maybe they could be donated for people to learn how to ride a bike.
That's a nice idea, and especially
And
since
maybe
those,
the helmets, I'm not sure.
Okay, I have a new question.
and that program is going, that whole impetus with the Bike in New York thing is just about ready to start, so it's
I
a good
know,
time
they
for
weren't,
it.
I know, if I knew how to put a bike together and take it apart. I
Okay.
would have signed up,
Rick?
but I know how to pedal. Anyway,
Rick, maybe,
Thank you.
and then I have a question. Rick, go ahead.
Pardon me.
That's right. There were several public safety projects which were in the investigative stages several months ago regarding security cameras on officers' vests and also regarding public security cameras on the streets of Roosevelt Island. Could you tell us what the status of those projects are?
Sure. The body cameras, I support, the president supports. You know, we're just not there yet. There are some discussions that have taken place with the union, and that, you know, that's one of their rights to consider something like that. But, you know, we support it. It's just not there yet.
And what about the street cameras?
Oh, Well, there are more cameras on the streets right now. Some of them aren't online yet. Motorgate is undergoing the largest installation. There'll be more cameras by pretty much all of the parks. And there was a plan that was constructed before I got here. We made some adaptations to that, and by doing that, like in other words, you generally have two types of cameras, fixed camera and what they call PTZ, pan, tilt, and zoom, which require more power. So that set us back in the Motorgate installation, but there are extra cameras on the street already, and there are more to come online.
Can I just,
Okay.
on that specific point on the cameras? First of all, the ones that are over by Al Lewis Park still pointing to the trees. I hope you fix them soon before you make them operational. And then on the ones in Motorgate, I heard about this from one of the operations committee meetings. There are PTZ cameras that can make use of what's called power over Ethernet, okay, and they don't require then remote power. You can mount them right there without having to have a power source on that. I can get in touch with you, right?
Yeah, that's great, because I'm
And
not
that's not a problem.
a techno,
Okay.
but
I'll send that to, it's Marguerite?
yes, Marguerite Barrett,
Okay.
she's.
Yeah, I'll send it to her.
Vivian?
Thanks.
Yes. Can you, what about the enforcing of the dogs staying off the grass?
Oh, yeah. That's an issue. That's an issue.
It is, the dog poop.
Yeah.
When I first moved here, you couldn't have a dog. But now everybody got dogs, and it's just, I mean, I know there's more important stuff to worry
No,
about.
but that's a quality of life issue, and I'm not gonna offer any excuses. I think we need to do more than that, more with that.
Could I be the person?
You wanna get deputized?
It is a misdemeanor to do that.
I have a,
You could deputize me, I'll be the.
okay, Vivian, you're deputized.
I really would.
I have a question. In the audit, it had recommended that senior and middle management staff were involved in supervising events in the field. How have the schedules been adjusted to increase days and hours covered? And are senior managers now mandated to engage in patrol supervision, respond to field incidents, including arrests? And that includes your lieutenant, deputy, well, Renee is now gone.
Right.
When he was here, if he did, as well as the captain. We never see them, so are they now? I know you are.
And
Well,
I have a follow-up question in terms of span of
Okay.
control after that.
First of all, having run 3 police precincts, we don't have an overabundance of administrators. Captain Suarez is an administrator, and she has plenty of work to do, believe me, and does a great job at it. Lieutenant Coleman is out in the field now.
Oh, good.
Not all the time, but she's
Haven't
out
seen
there.
her.
She was out there today, it was at the bus accident.
Oh, as she goes, so she was responding to an event or an incident in the field
Yes.
today, okay?
Exactly.
I'm asking because those
No,
are the
you're
words of
right.
the audit.
Uh,
I'm responding to the audit's recommendations, that's what I'm asking about.
And that's pretty much it. Everybody else responds. We're very thin in the administrative end.
Well, so then you're saying that you plan to leave Suarez as she is, simply as administrative. The new person that you're planning to replace Renee Bryant with, what do you see the scope of their service? I mean, compared to what Renee did, which wasn't much as far as we saw, will they be utilized? Will they be utilized and the recommendations of the audit followed in hiring this person?
Yes. Yes, and it's kind of interesting because we're really not computerized yet, as much as we'd like to think we were. I mean, the state of, we have all the records, but it's a hand search. The contract is just about to be signed for the impact program,
Okay.
which is a program of record management that's very specific to law enforcement. And we did, and we're We've gotten a lot of great reviews from other law enforcement entities, and hopefully that'll make the captain's job easier.
Free her up to be in the field.
Yet to be seen.
At the
Hopefully
time.
that's part of the goal.
I wanted to ask on that, I mean, when I did this analysis about, let's say a year ago, it seemed that there were, I guess, 6 levels of the organization, so officer, sergeant, lieutenant, captain, deputy, and then director. 6, I think, right?
Yes.
Okay, and one of the things that had been recommended, for other law enforcement entities, is dealing with span of control. Rough, on average, how many people do you have working beneath you? And I remember the number being particularly low for us, in the sense that there aren't, for each supervisory position, there's relatively few officers underneath that. And so putting it in layman's terms, it means that we're top-heavy on the supervisory side. And so they had given recommendations, there were recommendations on that. I know we talked about it in the audit. I don't recall exactly where it got referenced. I don't think they used the word span of control in the audit. But what that translates to us, though, in terms of the operation of public safety, is that to use an old phrase, we've got a lot of chiefs and few braves, out there. And I would say, in the latest budget, which I see is increasing public safety from 40 or 41 up to, I think it's like 45, I think is what is proposed. What I've looked in the past is that on average you were using effectively about 22-ish full-time equivalents in terms of patrolling, which meant that the remaining officers, and this is over a 7-day period, not on a single shift, the remaining officers were effectively idle. What do you see the current staffing level is on average for the force, approximately?
I thought we needed more officers.
Okay.
And in the NYPD, generally, you'll have a sergeant with 8 police officers, but it's kind of apples and oranges. They're really addressing different conditions than we have here. We fortunately don't have a high crime problem, but nonetheless, we're in the final stages of vetting 6 new officers, and they went through a rigorous interview process. And I kind of know what I'm looking for. I tell them personally right out flat that this isn't NYPD blue or anything like, if you're kind of looking for action and enforcement related activity, you're in the wrong place. If you enjoy speaking to people and helping folks, you're in the right place. I don't necessarily see us as being top-heavy, Frank, because we have a large administrative burden presently. And there are generally 2 folks handling that. That would be Lieutenant Coleman and Captain Suarez.
Okay.
And to a lesser degree, my secretary.
Okay, well, maybe I'll frame the questions quantitatively, and then maybe you can follow up with a response after you've researched it a bit. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, back in October of last year, you wrote a letter which appeared in the Wire. This is a long letter. It appeared in response to the controversy at the time regarding the Delhi incident, or the Delhi noise complaints, which had prompted your letter that they reduce their hours. We know they haven't. That was considered a major community conflict at that time. Well, in your letter, which was about 5 months ago, it appeared in the paper, you said you had a lot of work in front of you. And so I'm asking you tonight what you've gotten to within the last 5 months in terms of, benchmarks. You said you had a comprehensive training initiative for all public safety department personnel, which will include public safety community interaction, continuum of force, de-escalation techniques, alternatives to force, to name a few. So how far have you gotten with the comprehensive training initiative?
Well, I think I stated earlier, I have spent a lot of time training them myself. And, you know, I did not want to bring anybody in to train them before I kind of had a good understanding of what the issues were. And that didn't happen overnight. So I think we have a good start, and as I stated earlier, I have someone, I can't give you a date because the person is overseas at present, to address just those areas that I mentioned, that you mentioned in the article, and that I mentioned earlier. So we have.
I'm sorry, yeah. I
Oh, no, that's
just
all
got a
right.
follow-up question.
Sure.
Can you prove that they have received this training? Like that they've completed modules, that it's been documented? That they've completed actual training in a classroom or
Yes.
however it's done?
Yes.
Can you? They've
Yes.
done it? Every single officer has undergone this
Which training are you talking about?
Well, you mentioned here in your letter of October that you were going to undertake an initiative. This is 5 months ago. And you said that the training initiative will include public safety, community interaction, continuum of force, de-escalation techniques, alternatives to force, to name a few. Now, have they completed these modules that you can show us that they've completed them?
Not yet.
Thank you.
No, I think
Well,
that you
No,
had
I
mentioned.
don't mean the informal talking that you may give them. I'm talking about formal training.
No, I understand you
Yeah.
100%,
Like from
and it's
you know-
not completed yet.
Oh, okay.
We have work to do.
Okay.
You did, is that what you mentioned, that you were waiting for somebody that you knew who was a trainer? When Sherry had asked the question, didn't you
Yes.
mention that you had
Yes.
you had put the request in, but that you had somebody you had worked with that you
Yes.
wanted to do these trainings?
Yes.
And he's back now? Because I
Yes.
remember you had
Yes.
spoken to
Yes.
me
Yes.
and mentioned that this was the time, winter was the time, but then we dealt with a number of major situations which didn't give you that extra time you thought you might have during the
These
season.
snowstorms, the
Right.
preparation for these snowstorms, if you'd spend a few days with me, but listen, Helen makes a good point. There is more work to be done there, and I'll have a tighter schedule for you next time we meet. Yes, ma'am?
So, Jack, you mentioned that you're vetting 6 people right now.
Yes.
Can you tell us the level? Are you talking about people that are patrol officers?
Yes, these,
So how many,
I don't think Frank would let me bring in 3 more lieutenants.
how many?
You're right. You're right.
No, these are entry-level positions, and I'll tell you what I was looking for. Not necessarily law enforcement experience, because I think it's unreasonable for an entry-level position. I looked, first of all, the obvious. Arrest records, drug history, you know, we don't have room for that here. You know, in a larger organization, they can be more flexible, but not here, we can be selective. I looked for people that had interest in the community, that volunteered time. And as much as I could intuitively, ensuring that they're not violent people. And I'm comfortable with the folks that we've vetted to this point.
So these additional officers, are they replacing somebody? Is this part of the easing on down the road?
One never knows.
I mean, you know, Charlene was telling about these wonderful 5 new officers, now it's 6. So, or are we just growing?
Well, I'll tell you what happened. I was holding the 6th spot for the youth officer position in the event I wasn't comfortable with the internal search. And then, you know, I'm comfortable right now with the person I'm going to be eventually putting in there in short order.
Okay, so you've got somebody
So we have another-
internally that you're gonna move up into the youth officer?
Yes.
Oh, good.
And we,
Is it Bunbury? Is it, who is it?
Bunbury is like, he's the community policing officer that everybody wants. I know he's very valuable, and I had that conversation
And you're gonna
with
keep
tonight.
him?
Of course I'm gonna keep him.
No, I don't mean, I know that you have him on the evening shift.
Yeah,
You
well,
plan to keep him there?
he has he's made it known that he would prefer to work on a
Right.
different tour.
Bring a new person into that.
Yeah.
Of course, when Well, that's exactly what it is. When the new people come in, it makes it a little more easier, you know, to,
Juggle it around.
and
Low seniority.
that's, but he's got like 20 years.
Can you tell us who's gonna be the new youth officer? Or you wanna wait?
I think it would be unfair because I haven't finalized it
Okay,
with my boss.
okay,
But,
Okay.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
On the record? No.
I'm sorry, what if the perennial complaints is that there's not the equivalent of a CCRB on Roosevelt Island? That was one of our burning issues, and still is, because there still is no CCRB on Roosevelt Island. Personally, how do you feel about that issue? What would you do if you were, let's say, the governor of the state of New York, and you notice there's this community that has this kind of this unique situation, that we have some coverage from the NYPD, which has a CCRB, but yet the community coverage, the ongoing, the daily coverage is by a police force or public safety force that does not have a CCRB. So what would you do?
well, you know, I've heard, read, and listened. I mean, I'm not prepared to make a commitment tonight because I'm not the governor. I'm the public safety director. And what I've done since I've been here is handle those myself. Now, I could understand why you might say, well, how could you be objective? They work for you. I think I've been pretty objective with it. And, the few serious allegations that we've had, I've shared with Erin. We've spoken for hours on it, and I'm comfortable with the action that I took. So I'm not prepared to comment on whether we should have a CCRB or not.
So at this point, the civilian complaint process is exactly what now? Because for a while it was directly, you had to go directly to the public safety department, you had to ask them for the form.
Right.
Once completing it, you had to give it back to them. While we were protesting, they switched it and we were allowed to pick up and drop
Yes.
off over at RIRA our
Right.
civilian complaints. Again, I haven't seen any investigated, I know you have investigated things that happened since, because we did discuss them.
Yes.
What is the civilian complaint process now that is afforded to residents? And how has it differed so that we know things will be investigated, and what is the turnaround time, et cetera?
Okay.
Huh?
Well, fortunately, it hasn't been a heavy, and as I mentioned, the complaints are down tremendously. They're down to 85%.
Yeah.
When I look at the 9 months prior to when I got here, and that would be in keeping with the prior 9 months. Now, that's for, and who makes that happen? All of us.
I was about to say.
All of us. in different ways. We all make that happen.
Mhm.
That is such an eloquent, almost justification for the course that we were on last year. Because like you said, crime hasn't gone up.
Right.
I mean, it's just a fact that's so striking.
Yeah, it is.
You know.
It is, and it's why, when...
And think of all these kids, the thing that really would bug us the most is that we would get these parents, and now my kid has a record for some BS thing.
Yes.
And,
Or
getting
he's
a
targeted.
job, it's hard enough to get a job, and you
Yes.
it follows them forever, so.
And I know Joyce and I have spoken about the trespass affidavit program. It has value when it's administered properly.
Right.
And it wasn't being administered properly.
I wish we would have had it back when I was working here.
Yeah. But, so we really haven't arrested anybody since I've been here under that program.
It shows you they
You know,
didn't need to.
Well, what's that?
I said that shows you that, many of those arrests were not real arrests. They weren't necessary arrests.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to characterize them, but they certainly were problematic.
Right.
And when I reviewed what transpired here before I got here, that was pretty apparent to me. So, I like it here a lot. Maybe my children might say too much. keeps me healthy enough to be here, and that you folks decide to keep me here. You know, I always want to know what we're not doing that you'd like to see us do, and what we're doing that you don't want to, you know, well, there's some obvious things that you don't want us to be doing, and, you know, there's a ways to go, and I think together we can continue to improve this.
Well, I think as mentioned, the audit had clear recommendations. We know that there have been issues and a lot of things, the Cornell, the snow, a lot of things which have kept you from or slowed down the progress towards those recommendations, but the trainings are important. Use of
Yes.
force, continuum of force is
Yes.
important. The various issues listed there, those training subjects, as you're aware, they need to begin.
Yes.
We believe that there needs to be a change still in your leadership staff. We still believe that the people whose civilian complaints are lodged and you have need to be brought to justice. There needs to be some kind of, you know, at least a finding, an investigation. If it's found not to be valid, then you don't do anything. But there's a finding and the people are told, we investigated, this is what we found, and then they can say something about it. That's another thing. The structure of the program, your MIS system, the body cameras, which were told would be done when the board was, you know, saying, listen, we understand that this is an issue. That should be, you know, I know that other things have sidetracked it, but that's another thing which, you know, hopefully will be able to be done. We'd just like to see, yes, we're happy. We think that you're, you know, you have the right mood. We see that there is a shift to community policing. We appreciate that. But there are still things that need to continue to be done, even as stated in the audit, for us to be, you know. Huh?
I do it. No, how about we do that and partner up with the committee to do that?
Right. Now, the public safety committee can do that. We did that with Officers for Terrorists, etc. So
Okay.
we were happy to do that at RIRA because we felt he was taking the right steps. We would be happy to do that.
Because not every public safety officer is that.
Right. No, we know that. We've been working with the public safety officers who are telling us what they need changed, and I get still today, thank you for doing this.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you. That's what I get because they're happier now to be policing on a community level rather than having to be beating kids. Yeah. I know, that's the bottom line. I get it all the time. I still get thank yous.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you. We're going to. All right. Thank you. Do you have anything else? You're welcome. All right. Well, thank you.